right, guys. Coach Josh here for your first installment of Coach's Corner. I hope you guys' first couple weeks of the body competition has been going great. Today's little talk, we're going to talk a little bit about fueling for your goals and effects of alcohol on your performance. Okay, so just to give you a little background about me, I am Coach Josh. I am the senior performance coach here at the EXOS-ARE facility. I'm running classes throughout the day, the virtual and the online stuff, but I'm super stoked for this opportunity to talk to you guys a little bit about nutrition in regards to alcohol and fueling for your specific goals, whether that be weight loss or muscle gain. And just for today, I'm not here to tell you exactly what it is that you need to be eating. More so along the lines of, I want you guys to walk away with an idea of some new habit changes that you can kind of implement into your life to help you get to your specific goals a little bit quicker. And hopefully by the end of this body composition challenge that we have going on, you've reached some of your goals that you set for yourself. Okay, so I'm moving over to my next slide here, just table of contents, give you guys the bird's eye view of what we're going to be discussing today. So my first few slides, we're going to talk about fueling for building. Then we're going to move into fueling for weight loss, and then talk about alcohol effects on training and strategies to minimize alcohol consumption, because I know that's a big piece for many of us in our environment. You know, we get a lot of questions a lot of times talking about how does alcohol affect what it is that I'm doing. You know, is it worth me cutting out or whatnot? But we'll talk more about that towards the end there. If you guys have any questions about anything, we will answer them towards the end. Just hold the questions for the end. Okay, so moving on to first topic. So we're talking about fueling for building. Okay, so with this one here, I want you guys, those of you that are trying to put on a little bit of muscle mass, trying to gain a little bit of weight, my question for you is, are you eating enough? Chances are, most of the time, you may think that you are. However, most times we're probably not eating enough calories for what it is that we're trying to do. You know, we'll see a lot of guys that come into the gym that are trying to put on some mass and weight, and they're hitting the gym every single day, just absolutely crushing it, right? But then for some reason, they can't figure out why they can't put on any sort of mass, any sort of weight. I think a lot of times they are underfed, and if you take a look at your daily caloric intake throughout the course of the day, chances are that calorie intake is on the lower end. So a simple action item that I think that you guys could take away with from today is taking a food log, a food journal, all right, writing down everything that you throw into your mouth throughout the course of the day, okay? And then reverting back to it at the end of the day, taking a look and seeing how it is that you did. And chances are maybe I've skipped a meal or two, skip breakfast. Usually most people will skip that breakfast, or they'll skip lunch, maybe not have too many snacks in between. But I think keeping a food journal for yourself and kind of understanding how, you know, your food intake throughout the day will affect your weight is definitely a really good strategy to utilize. Okay, so then moving on to the next thing with eating early and eating often. So again, if our goal is to gain weight, put on a little bit of muscle mass, again, I need more calories to be inputted into my body, right? So eating early, super easy thing to do. If I wake up an hour or so earlier a day and then get that first meal of the day at, like, let's say 7 a.m., okay, big muscly breakfast, good high protein, lots of veggies or even fruits in there. Just getting that breakfast in consistently throughout your week will aim to get a little bit more calories throughout the day, right? Kind of think about it, right? If I'm waking up early at 7 a.m., I get intake of calories, X amount of calories, whether that be an extra 400 to 500 calories a day just by getting breakfast in. That's saying if I don't have breakfast, right? If I get that in over the course of that entire week, if you've consistently done that, you've now increased your calorie count by X amount of calories, right? I'm terrible at math, so I won't throw the number out there. But simply adding in that breakfast could be contributor for you to get a little bit extra calories throughout the day. And if you start early enough, the opportunity for getting more food in you has now become a little bit longer, right? Because instead of having my first meal at say 12 o'clock p.m., I now have it at 7. Then I could take the opportunity between 7 and 12 to get a little bit more food in. So that'd be like a simple strategy that you guys could probably implement. Take a look at how often you're eating your breakfast, and if we can kind of aim to eat breakfast early and then get a little bit more smaller meals and snacks throughout the day, that would be ideal. Moving on to that next little tab there, no skip meals. So I think almost for building, it's almost like having a second job. A lot of times we tend to skip meals because we get busy at work or whatnot, but understanding that in order for us to build muscle, to gain weight, we have to keep that calorie count a little bit on the higher side. So never allowing yourself to get hungry. I think aim to eat something every 2 to 3 hours. And it doesn't have to be anything like super big, like a full plate of food. Simple way to do that is just drinking your calories. If you have a couple of shakes, protein shakes, or even like just some peanut butter thrown into your protein shake, that's extra added calories in there as well. That could be a very simple way for you to get those calories in without spending a whole lot of time cooking food. Okay, so I think shakes and things like that are great, especially if you make them yourself. You could throw in a bunch of things in there that are very nutrient dense, but also higher in calories. But very simple way to get those calories in if we are on the go and don't have enough time in the day to kind of sit down and eat and cook or whatever it may be. All right, and point number 3, prioritizing our sleep. So I think this one here is one of the biggest X factors when it comes to changing your body composition, building a little bit of muscle mass. So sleep changes your hormone balance and recovery ability, all right? So if we don't get enough sleep, right, and we're training hard, we never give our body enough time to fully build itself back up and recover. And that makes it a little bit harder for us to put on a little bit of muscle mass. The more sleep that you get, the more leaner and more muscle that you can put on easier, right? Because our body naturally repairs itself when you sleep. But I think a lot of times, most people, it's tough for them to get that good 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And I definitely understand that. But if you can somehow fit in a couple of naps throughout the day, or maybe you prioritize a little bit, maybe an extra hour or two of sleep a night. Again, we're talking over the course of an entire week. So if I can just get an extra hour of sleep every single day, that would be super ideal for me. That would be very beneficial, right? The less sleep that you get, I think you would agree with me that you tend to feel a little bit less energetic, a little less motivated. But I think sleep definitely helps the body recover, and especially for building, getting the muscle to grow. We need that sleep. So aiming for that 6 to 8 hours would be super ideal. All right. Now, my next one, let's move on to just the simple topic of fueling for weight loss. Okay, so a couple key points here that I want to lay out is, number 1, more lean protein and vegetables, okay, in our diet. Less legs, the better. So if we're looking to decrease our weight or have weight loss, having more protein that's going to be leaner and more vegetables on the plate is going to be more beneficial for us. So we always say less legs, the better. The difference between a cow versus say like a fish or a chicken. Chicken has 2 legs, cow has 4. Which one's going to be a little bit leaner, right? I'd probably err on the side of the one like the chicken or the fish. But the more that we can kind of think about our protein and our food intake in that sense, and building our meals around that would help us kind of lose a little bit of weight. Another thing to understand is that the weight fluctuates throughout the day for weight loss, right? Our weight fluctuates throughout the day. So the scale that you check yourself in on a daily basis shouldn't be your only measurement of success. I think If you kind of shift that focus, instead of focusing so much on the scale, focus on your training and your nutrition and the consistency of those two. And that'll help kind of be your guide over the course of your whatever your current regimen is. Okay. And then number 3, portion control. We talk about this sometimes in terms of like, do we know what a serving size of carbohydrate is? Do we know what a serving size of protein? A lot of times we'll go to restaurants and, they'll come out with a plate of food. Most people will see that plate of food as just one serving. But if you kind of break it down, and you could use this hand size portion guide that I have to the right here as kind of a guide for you to let you know, like, keep track of how much servings of each one of those macronutrients are you getting. So learning how to build your plate with the portions is going to be super crucial, because then you can understand how much of one serving a specific macronutrient is, which then you can kind of control the amount of calories that you're intaking into the body. So a serving size of protein, about the palm of your hand. A serving size of vegetables, about the size of your fist. And then a serving of carbohydrates, about the size of a cupped hand. And then a serving size of fat, so that could be like peanut butter, olive oil, that'd be about the size of your thumb. So I want you guys to take a look at, moving after today, just kind of take a look at your meals that you're having either at your lunch and your dinner, and then just kind of make a little bit of a judgment and see how much of each macronutrient, how much of a serving of each macronutrient that you have in there. So remember, when we're trying to lose weight, we're trying to cut down calories going in, versus if we're trying to gain weight, we're trying to increase calories going in, right? So if I know what a serving of each one of those macronutrients are, I can understand how much food that I need is going to help me in my specific goal of weight loss. All right, second point here, we got out of sight, out of mind. Okay, so pay attention to the high calorie snacks that you tend to overeat, and keep them out of the house. I think a lot of times having them readily available is dangerous for us, especially if we know that we have a sweet tooth, we have something that we love to eat. If they aren't around, most of the time, the temptation will not be there. I know for me, being in San Diego, we're a huge craft beer scene. And if I have some really good craft beer in the fridge, I know that I'm going to drink them at some point. So I try and limit the amount that is actually stocked up in my fridge. So that way I don't have to go to the store or, go get more. And it's less likely for me to intake them on a daily basis. So pay attention to what those things are, your weaknesses are, and then see if we can kind of keep them a little bit further away from us. And that way the temptation doesn't lead to us eating all of it. Very simple strategy that I think is super helpful when in terms of weight loss. And it goes to say too, like, I don't think that you should never have any of it, but in order for us to control the amount going in, right, what are those strategies that we can use to make sure that we're not eating as much of it? And this is a simple little thing that I think we all could do, pay a little bit more attention to. So now moving on to the alcohol effects on training. Question, is it worth it? So these are a couple points here that I want to lay out as far as how alcohol affects our training. So we all know that alcohol is a diuretic, which causes us to utilize more water, or decrease the water amount in our body. Okay, we need to be hydrated when we exercise to increase blood flow and improve nutrient circulation, right? So if I'm constantly in a state of dehydration, that may lead to poor performance, especially if I'm working out, right? If you guys ever felt the Monday after a Sunday, Super Bowl or whatever it may be, a Sunday fun day, you felt way different that following day. And it could possibly be because of the dehydration factor, right? So make sure that as we're, intaking alcohol, we are still properly hydrating up. Secondarily, it interferes with the body, the way the body makes energy. So when our body metabolizes alcohol, the liver cannot produce enough glucose, which leads to lower blood sugar. Okay, exercise requires that blood sugar, and if that liver isn't producing it, right, our performance can decrease. If our body is giving all its resources to, get rid of that alcohol, because essentially it's almost kind of like a poison going into our body when we are intaking it. If our body is giving those resources, all those resources to getting it out of our system, that can have detrimental effects on our performance in the weight room or in wherever training environment that we're in. And then for weight loss, we can talk about how it can lead to unwanted calories going into the body, which lead to more lazy days and lower motivation. Those days after a night full of drinking, you could feel yourself kind of being a little bit more lazy, less motivated to go out for a run or to exercise or whatnot. I think we've all been there. Those days after, those hard days after, where the head's hurting, we're more likely to just sit there the rest of the day and just recover from that. So asking that simple question of, is it worth it? These are some of the things that affect us when we are intaking alcohol. And I don't want you guys to, I'm not going to sit here and say, don't drink at all. But I think I want you guys more to understand the habits that surround you in regards to alcohol. Like, how are we intaking it? How much we are intaking it? And how is it affecting whatever our specific fitness goal is? Okay. So simple thing, observing your habits. We can take note of how much alcohol you consume on a weekly or daily basis, and then utilize this information to give yourself a plan to be more mindful of how much it is that you're actually consuming. So if you know that every Friday you have a happy hour with the team, and you're going to be having a few drinks, maybe it's something simple like slowing down your next drink, right? So instead of normally you having 2, maybe it's only 1, or whatever it may be, but kind of giving yourself a strategy in regards to that environment. Because again, you guys know your habits and what what you tend to do. And so all we want to try and do is just disrupt that a tiny bit. Secondarily, feel how alcohol affects your body. So when you are drinking and, after a night or whatever it may be, kind of think about how that made your body feel. If you're out and let's say it's like a Friday night and Saturday, you have to train, take note of how 2-3 drinks affects you the following day, right? And then that could be just enough to ask yourself, is it really worth me consuming that extra drink if I know I have to train tomorrow morning and I have to get after it? And then number 3, disrupt the autopilot. So what I mean by that is essentially like as we was talking, we don't know too much, or our habits. We don't know how much alcohol that we intake usually when we're out and about. But I want you guys to kind of just realize how much it is that you are intaking and kind of disrupt that a little bit. So going back to that example of having Friday night happy hours with the coworkers, you could do something along the lines of going out for a hike later on in the evening with the coworkers. So turn that into something that doesn't have alcohol, which in turn will help you kind of decrease the amount that you're having. Simple strategy like that. Again, you guys are the masters of your own lives. So figuring out what are those situations that you are put in where you are intaking, all of those drinks, and then just take yourself out a little bit. I think if you kind of look at how your week is and whatnot, like you can figure out there are certain areas there where you can kind of improve on in terms of alcohol intake. And then another cool thing that I personally that I have, and I feel like I could touch on a lot is having a fitness tracker and seeing how the alcohol affects your specific body. I currently wear a Whoop strap. With that thing, it basically tells me my entire recovery score on a daily basis. And from my own experience, after a night of having a couple of drinks, I do witness my recovery score be a lot lower on this thing. So making sure, like, I think sometimes having that visual aid of like knowing how it's affecting my body physiologically is super helpful. So if you are a data nerd and like that kind of stuff, feel free to grab one, see how your body's reacting to those sorts of things. But definitely super helpful. And if you guys have any questions on that, I'll be happy to kind of talk about that a little bit more. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it with some questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot them out at me. But again, I'd like to thank you guys for your time hanging out with me for a good 25, 30 minutes here, talking a little bit about nutrition. Hopefully this was super helpful for you guys and you kind of implement some of the strategies that we talked about today in regards to your fueling and alcohol consumption for your fitness goals. But if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. If not, we'll call it there, you guys.